Hey folks, this is Abel James, and thanks so much for joining us on Fat Burning Man, where we talk about real food and real results. Did you know that koalas sleep 22 hours every single night? On the other hand, giraffes sleep just under 2 hours, usually in brief 5-minute snooze sessions. So how do you know how much sleep you need? We're here today with sleep specialist Dr. Roger Washington to help you figure that out. Before we get to our interview, here's a quick update from our online community, the Fat Burning Tribe. Summer is here, and so are our new wild meal plans and workouts. Right now, we're kicking off our workout selfie challenge. The winner gets a super cool primal kettlebell with another special surprise. Don't miss the crazy video where my wife Allison's unconventional workout involves shimmying to the top of a coconut tree in Mexico. She even brought me a coconut for my next tequila cocktail. If that's not love, I don't know what is. One of our newest tribe members, also named Allison, just said this: 11 pounds, people. 11 pounds are gone in 15 days. Peace out, fat. Congrats, Allison. We are so stoked that you found us, and peace out, fat indeed. Now, if you want everything you need to get in the best shape of your life in one place this summer, join us for a discount at fatburningtribe.com. From any device, all you need to do is type in fatburningtribe.com to join us. And make sure you join us in our Facebook group. We've got some live events coming up. You get monthly meal plans, workouts. We're really building this out. So if you haven't checked out the Fat Burning Tribe yet, please come and hang out and meet us. We're really having fun doing the Q&A videos and interacting with you guys. So don't be shy. Keep in touch. And if you want to know more about how to master this wild lifestyle, that's the best place to do it. So one last time, fatburningtribe.com. All right, on this show with Dr. Roger Washington, you're going to be learning about how to get better sleep. Just a quick note before we get to the interview. Number one, the internet connection on this one was a little janky, so my apologies if there are a couple of words that are missed here and there. But also, I'm not a sleep specialist. I'm not a specialist in almost anything out there. I consider myself a generalist. And as the host of this show, I do my best to bring on specialists in their areas of expertise. And sometimes I don't agree with my guests about everything. There are a few things that Dr. Washington says on this show, like the fact that that I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's about naps. There are certain things that I might disagree with, but I do my very best not to be confrontational, certainly not to tell him that he's wrong or any other guest. I think everyone has their own opinions, and he certainly has a lot more experience in treating people with sleep than someone like I do. So please listen to all of these interviews with an open mind. It's all about what works best for you. So try out different ways of going about all of this. See what sticks, put it in your bag of tricks, and let me know how it goes, because we're all just trying to figure this out together. So with that said, you're about to learn why police officers, firefighters, and others with high-stress careers die prematurely after retiring, why doctors must treat the root cause, not the symptoms, what to do when you might have trouble sleeping, how much sleep you really need every night, and much more. All right, let's go hang out with the doc. Hi folks, today I'm privileged to be here with Dr. Roger Washington, a Stanford Medical School graduate and Academy of Family Physicians fellow. Roger Washington, MD, has answered the question, "Doctor, why am I sick?" for 30 years. In his first book, Lack of Sufficient Sleep Matters, Dr. Washington decodes the root cause of illness he discovered in California's Silicon Valley, where sacrificing sleep is the norm. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Washington.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure.
So someone walks into your office in Silicon Valley. How can you tell they're not getting enough sleep?
Well, I talk to them about their sleep habits. I usually would ask them what their strategy is for getting sleep.
Uh-huh.
And they
Do
tell
most
me
people
about,
have a strategy when it comes to sleep?
well, everyone has a strategy.
Yeah.
Even if it's a disorganized pattern,
Sure.
It's their strategy.
Yeah.
So I want to hear what their habits are, and that way I can tell if they're getting enough sleep. Ask them about whether they feel rested when they first wake up in the morning.
Sure.
Gives you a very good idea.
Do you find that people are protective of their sleep habits or patterns? It seems like, especially in reading your book and the types of people that you deal with, not getting sleep and thriving on a small amount of sleep is something that they brag about.
Right. I think that people who are very often are successful entrepreneurs, people, single mothers, people who have challenges, very often what they try to do is meet those challenges by pushing themselves to sleep less and get more done. And that seems to be the norm here in the Silicon Valley. People brag about how little sleep they need. And it's the kind of thing that I try to debunk and get people to understand that sleep is much more important.
Yeah. So how do you debunk that?
Well, I talk to them about how they feel when they first wake up in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I talk to them about how they feel after lunch. Sometimes people call it food coma.
Yeah.
I ask them whether they have enough energy for their family and friends when they come home from work, or do they feel a need to sit in front of the television and decompress? Do they have energy for their children?
Yeah.
Or are they trying to just have a few moments of me time, and get them to realize that maybe as a result of their fatigue and sleeping too little, they're actually cheating their families, cheating themselves at work. Try to get them to look at it a little differently than they usually do.
Yeah. Now, for the people who I've met so many of them who are just like, I love not sleeping. I do great. I get so much more done. How do you really get to the root of that and show people and demonstrate to them that it's worth making a lifestyle change, that is an illusion?
Right. Well, very often when people come to my office, they're already ill. Yeah. Right. So you can talk to them about how they've become ill. They want to know, why did I become ill? And what I can do is ask them about their approach to stress, for example. Mm-hmm. You see, many people believe that when they get stressed, they have this thing that they do in order to meet their challenges. They make up their mind that they're going to get it done, whatever it is. And they seem to feel as if they're going to get more energy to get it done, as if it's an extra energy. Now, many people have a sense of that. Perhaps you've heard of the second wind that people get in the evening.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right. So a person might be tired, say 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the evening, but let's say they have an exam to study for, or they have to pack for a trip, or plan some project for work, and they push themselves to stay awake. And then they get this second energy, this kind of renewed sense of energy, and they feel more awake and alert and ready to get things done. Well, when I get people to recognize that they have that experience with extra energy, I ask them, where do you think the energy comes from?
Yeah. That's a great question.
People say things, well, I think it's motivation. Mm-hmm. Or they'll say, it's the power of mind, or I just got to get it done. That's all. So, okay, well, that's fair. And then I ask them, so this energy you get, you think it's free? And most people recognize the first law of thermodynamics suggests that there's no such thing as extra energy.
Yeah.
So I call it energy borrowing. And what I get people to recognize is that when they're borrowing energy, it sets them up to become ill later, or perhaps not to function as well the next day. Mm-hmm. And I talk to them about their experience with this second energy, this second wind. I call it accelerated. It's an acronym that I made up to help describe the characteristics that a person feels when they get this extra energy to get things done.
Yeah.
And when people can relate to it, then I get them to understand that it's not really extra energy, it's energy borrowing. And I get them to try to understand that they're borrowing it from their immune system.
Yeah, right. It's so interesting because we were talking about this a little bit before the interview, but when I was playing as a professional musician fairly often, a lot of times I would have a day job, and so I'd be working throughout the hours of the day, and then around 6, 7 p.m., that would roll by, and I'm just like, man, I wish I could just kind of crash out right now, but I know I have to be on stage in 6 hours at midnight or whatever, and so I would realize that I do get that second wind, right? And I think a lot of people who go to competitive colleges or are studying all the time, no matter where you're studying, a lot of times there is that thing, and it's kind of a group experience where you're all out partying or studying or playing music or whatever it is, and you're kind of riding that second wave such that it becomes a lifestyle. And not necessarily a good one, but a really interesting thing you put in your book is that you don't necessarily crash out in the middle of that energy. You crash out afterwards. And that's why, you wait until your vacation to get sick, right? So can you talk a little bit about that phenomenon? Because I think it's fascinating.
Well, that's actually how I came about understanding this relationship between not sleeping and illness. What I noticed is that my patients became ill not when they were stressed.
Hmm.
They didn't become ill when they had a project to finish. They became ill when the project was over. They
Yeah.
didn't get sick when they were in Las Vegas partying like a rock star. They
Hmm.
got sick on the way home. So I began to realize that maybe it wasn't stress that was making people ill. Stress may have a part to play, but it seemed that if it was really stress, they should get sick in the middle of the problem.
Right.
And that almost never happens.
Yeah.
In other words, I ask my clients to look at your own life and to see when you become ill, to see when you get your headache, to see when you get your migraine, to see when you got your flu, to see when you got your pneumonia or your appendicitis or your kidney stone. And it usually comes, almost always comes, I should say, 24 to 48 hours after a person slows down
Hmm.
after having become accelerated. And so what I began to realize is that it wasn't the stress, it must have been something else. And so what I talk to patients about is what their experience was like when they were pushing themselves. And what I began to realize is that many of them aren't even stressed.
Hmm.
They actually feel more confident
Hmm.
and more focused to get their things done. Like you said, the college students are at the competitive schools. Right, that's how they got there.
Yeah.
They had the ability to push themselves and get more done.
Hmm.
In fact, one of the things that I've noticed is a phenomena, perhaps you've heard of it. It's called blue death.
Yes. Yeah. Please talk about that.
Right. So blue death is what the firemen and the policemen who wear the blue uniforms, the phenomena that they describe that when they retire in their 60s,
Hmm.
they don't live very long thereafter. And it's a mystery to people. It happens the same thing to career military.
Hmm.
They see now these people, if anyone's going to be stressed, you would think it's them, right?
Sure.
But when I interview them and I say, "So are you stressed?" They say, "Oh, 24-hour shifts? That's nothing. That's what we do.
Hmm.
Back to backs. Oh, that's no problem." Right. Because what I've become to understand is that some people, what I call the can-do people, have the ability to push themselves and get this accelerated extra energy experience to get things done.
Hmm.
But because it's not really extra energy, it's borrowed from their immune systems. When they slow down, in other words, when they retire, when they give themselves permission to say go on vacation, or when they finish their big project and they say, "Oh, I can relax now," that's when they become ill.
Yeah.
It's when they die.
Right. So what is that? Is that just cumulative cortisol, adrenaline? Like what are they running on? What is that? They're borrowing from their immune system, but how does that
Yes.
work as a mechanism?
Well, I think the way to appreciate the situation is that you would look at how sleep and activity are related. I've developed what I call my Washington sleep loss principle.
Hmm.
And what it means is that in order to remain healthy, you need to balance your activity with the amount of sleep you get. Sleep is not for rest. I'm trying to get people to understand sleep is for life. When you bring a little baby home from the hospital on her first few days of life, she's sleeping so much because she's tired and she needs rest. The baby's growing.
Hmm.
They grow when they're asleep. The more they need to grow, the more sleep they need to get. In fact, if you take a child to the amusement park and she has a big day and goes swimming that evening, she gets tired early.
Yeah.
She follows her own body's natural rhythm to get more sleep to balance the daytime activity.
Hmm.
And so adults, the same thing happens to us. If we do more activity, we get tired earlier in the evening. We need to balance that, but we don't need to grow. We need to make repairs.
Hmm.
And it's while we're asleep, while we're in our deepest stages of sleep, what's generally called the non-REM sleep, the sleep in which it's hard to wake someone up,
Hmm.
that vulnerable sleep when the baby falls asleep in the car and you could walk her up to the bedroom and turn her upside down and put her pajamas on. She's completely out and vulnerable. That's the deep sleep during which human growth hormone, which is so important
Hmm.
for continued life. And adults need that too in order to stay alive. But we have the ability to adapt to crisis and circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
And if we decide to stay awake and push ourselves, the body thinks it's a survival issue, and we get extra energy to stay alert and alive. But it's borrowing from the immune system,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to catch up with us eventually. And so what I'm trying to teach people is that the idea is, in order to remain healthy, you need to balance your activity with your sleep, because if you don't, you'll run a sleep debt.
Mm-hmm.
You'll borrow from your immune system, and eventually when you slow down, you'll become ill.
Yeah.
And if you do it for too long, like the policemen and the firemen do, who are so, let's call it macho, and push themselves into their 60s, and then they retire, they have nothing left.
Yeah. So
does that help? Does that resonate for you?
Oh, it does. Absolutely. I just want people to understand how important it is to get that sleep, right? Because there's still, it's one of the parts of health that is so easily skipped over, that people are just like, oh yeah, sleep, I'll get sleep later or whatever, right? I'll sleep when I'm dead. But the irony of it is that you're killing yourself in that moment when you're deciding not to sleep, or as a function of your lifestyle or your workplace, you're not able to sleep. So is there anything you can do to kind of mitigate that damage if you know that that's happening? If you're in the middle of accumulated sleep debt, what can you do aside from getting to sleep more? And we can talk a little bit about that later, but is there anything you can do, such as meditation or different brain states, or is it just pretty much a lost cause? You need to get that sleep.
Well, the answer is somewhat complicated, but to make it easy, I would say to you that it is possible to catch up your sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of what people say, that no, once you haven't slept, it's lost, it's gone, it's a lost cause. No, the truth is, if you have a sleep debt, you can pay your sleep debt back by sleeping extra when you have the opportunity. For example, the college students that you described earlier. Mm-hmm. When they come home from school and they're back living in their mom's house, and they get back in their bed, and they give themselves permission to sleep in the next morning.
Sleep for 3 days.
Chances are, chances are they may wake up their usual time, but then they realize, oh no, I made a decision, I'm not getting up. Mm-hmm. And with no sense of guilt, they go back to sleep. And then maybe 90 minutes later, because that's the human cycle, they might wake up again and look at the clock and think, no, I'm not ready. Mm-hmm. And then they might wake up 90 minutes later and then see the sun coming through the window, and no, they don't care. Mm-hmm. They're going back to sleep. And their mom knows that they've been sleep deprived, and her concern is their health. So she's not going to call you and say, oh, get up, you lazy bones. She's going to say, no, leave him alone, let him sleep. And then you might get up perhaps at noon, after having slept 13, 14, 15 hours perhaps. And then you'll notice then how good you feel, because you've made up your sleep debt for that cycle. Mm-hmm. And if you do it again that Saturday night and do it again on Sunday, the cycle of sleep will be shorter and shorter and get closer to 8 hours, so that eventually you'll have made up your sleep debt. And when you make up your sleep debt, it helps you to feel more healthy, to feel more alive, to feel more alert. Yes, you can make up your sleep debt.
I love that. And you describe it as euphoric, right? When you have the proper amount of sleep, you're in a state of euphoria.
Well, actually, there is some information I'd like to share with you about that. You see, we've been lied to. Perhaps you recognize that the Greek word for too much is hyper. Mm-hmm. And when something's not enough or it's underneath, we call that hypo. The Greek word for what's in between, the right amount, is eu, EU. Mm-hmm. Phoros is the Greek word for how you carry yourself. Euphoria means normal. Mm-hmm. I asked one of my clients once, I said, have you ever been maybe near the waterfall or the ocean and feel the spray of the water on your face, or in a convertible and the air hits you in the face and you feel kind of awake and alert and alive? Or maybe you're with your friends at Thanksgiving dinner and you look around and you feel comfortable and you're awake and you say to yourself, this is a good moment. Mm-hmm. You say, okay, well, I'm not Gates. I don't have all the money in the world, but my life has led me to this, and this is good. This is a good moment. Do you know that feel?
Of course.
I asked a guy, he says, yeah, I know that feeling, doc. I get that feeling all the time, like once a year. Well, that was his perspective.
Yeah.
But I can tell you 2 days ago, I asked a young man from Australia what that feeling was. And he says to me, that's normal life, doc. I get that every day. Doesn't everybody? Why are we talking about it?
Yeah.
The point is that euphoria actually means normal feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that elated, inappropriate feeling of out of proportion to the circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
The truth of it is euphoria means normal. It's that feeling you get what we just described when you realize that life is good and your brain says to you, boss, life has been good.
Yeah.
Life hasn't changed, boss. You're the one who's been tripping. And what I'm trying to teach people is that the cornerstone of having that feeling every day is having no sleep debt, because you paid attention to and honored your sleep. That's what my book, Lack of Sufficient Sleep Matters, is implying. It talks about the illnesses that people get. But the other side of it, the reason for sleeping enough is so that you can wake up and have that feeling of euphoria every day.
Yeah.
You have here in Silicon Valley, we call it bandwidth.
Yeah.
You can wake up and have full bandwidth.
Right.
After lunch, when you get home from work, you have energy for your family and your friends. You're paying attention to your wife and what she has to say about her day. You're interested, you're alert, and you're taking it all in, and you're appreciative of it. That's euphoria. That's the gift of sleeping well.
I love that.
That's how I look at it.
Yeah, that's so fantastic. Now, to go back on your point before where you said you can catch up on a sleep debt.
Yes.
You can reverse that to some degree. What's the best way to do that? Is it napping? Is it extended sleep, say from a Friday to a late Saturday morning? How do you get it in there?
You know, that's the project I'm working on now. I'm writing my second book, The Euphoria of Sleeping Well, The Sleep Lover's Guide to Getting Good Sleep. Yeah. And in that, I'm going to talk more about it. What I've done so far is talk to people about what happens when you don't sleep enough.
Sure.
Because I'm trying to get people motivated to do more. Usually when people ask me the question, how much sleep do I really need? What they're doing is they want to cheat.
Right.
They want to say, how much can I get away with?
Yeah.
And I'm saying to people, finish that question, because the question really is, how much sleep do you need to stay well and to be healthy? Because then the answer is 8 hours minimum.
Yeah.
And if you do more, then you need more. If you do if you work out twice a day,
yeah,
you're going to need more sleep that night to feel well. So balancing activity with sleep is what I try to teach people in order to be healthy, to have euphoria. Otherwise, you build up sleep debt and you become ill in the ways that I've described in my book.
Napping in particular, is that something that you do recommend because it is solid sleep as long as it's for a long period of time, or power naps? There are so many different ways that people talk about it. What's your take?
A nap is cheating. Why do you need a nap?
Yeah.
What did you do wrong so far that you need a nap at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? That's how I look at it.
Interesting. So
you missed out last night. That's why you're tired now.
Right.
Shame on you. You're tired now and you're at work and you owe your employer your time, your best self, and yet you need a nap.
Sure.
You're cheating.
So 8 hours, that's basically the gold standard, right? But if you do more, you said that you need to sleep more as well.
To be healthy.
Right. So a lot of people are trying to improve their health by getting to the gym at 4:30 in the morning, right? Getting that workout in every morning. How would you weigh, physical activity versus stealing from your sleep to get that activity? Is it better to skip a workout, sleep longer? Is it some combination? What does that look like?
Well, let's do what I call a thought experiment. You and I will do the experiment.
Yeah.
Let's say we're designing a human being so that they can adapt and survive challenging and changing circumstances. All right? So we're on the design committee, you and me.
Got it.
Now, let's say that our human being is 40 years old and he catches his food 90% of the time. He's successful. Now, let's say food becomes more scarce, and now he's got to run around more, and he eats less.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you want to give him some kind of operating system he could go to in that circumstance where he could slow his metabolism down?
Sure.
Right. So idea is that if you have less food and you're running around more, having a slower metabolism would actually help you survive longer.
Right.
So why do people think that dieting and exercise is likely to make them lose weight?
Yeah.
Now let's take a look at it. We keep telling people diet and exercise, it'll make you lose weight. But we just talked about it. The body should fight that. It should allow, no, you might lose weight for a little bit, but then it should plateau because your body will slow down your metabolism so you can continue to survive.
Yeah.
Now let's take a look at it. I ask my patients, think about in your life about someone you know since you were even 18 who was overweight, lost weight, kept it off for a significant amount of time. Less than a handful of all the people that they know.
Sure.
Right. In other words, it's not a common phenomena that people can diet and exercise and lose weight. It doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
As a country, we fail at it.
Mm-hmm.
But we just looked at it. Is there a situation where people try it and diet and exercise and they lose a few pounds and then it plateaus? Does that ever happen?
Sure.
Well, that's almost universal. Everyone knows that situation like that. Right. But these are well-meaning people that continue to diet and exercise, but they stop losing weight.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The point is that something else is going on. And what I'm describing to people is that it's lack of sleep.
Yeah.
In other words, if you don't get enough sleep, just like if you don't get enough water and you don't get enough food, your body's going to adapt. If you feel tired, as you described earlier as a musician, you feel tired at 6 o'clock and you fight it, you're telling your body to go to emergency mode.
Mm-hmm.
And your body makes you feel accelerated and you feel more alert and more alive temporarily so that you can survive tonight. But wouldn't it make a good idea if your body went to emergency mode and it also shut down your metabolism?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that help you survive longer?
Right.
Right. I vote for that.
Yeah.
We're on the committee. Yeah. I say, okay, that's 2-0. So I say that's what we do. And that's what the body does. When people don't go to sleep at night, it shuts their metabolism down. That's what makes them gain weight.
Mm-hmm.
All the things that interfere with sleep, television, partying, whatever it is that you decide that you're going to do, doing a project, home, school work, if you stay up late, it's going to make you gain weight. So if you ask me, is it better to do more exercise or to sleep 8 hours? I vote you sleep 8 hours.
That's my vote too. Yeah. It's not necessarily popular advice, but a lot of people, write in with those types of questions where you can tell that they're trying to cheat a little bit somewhere along the lines.
Right. There's a hierarchy.
Yeah.
And the hierarchy is that you need sleep more than you need water.
Mm-hmm.
Water you can get by 2 days, 3 days?
Yeah.
Food, maybe a week. You can't get by 24 hours without sleeping. You will do what we call a micro sleep. With your eyes open, your brain will shut down.
Mm-hmm.
That's how important. Your air, maybe you can get by 40 seconds, if you're really good, 2 minutes,
Sure.
But then your body will take away your ability to withhold air and it will force you to breathe,
Right.
just as it will force you to sleep. That's how important it is.
Yeah. So what are some of the symptoms? Say you're not able for whatever reason to get 8 hours of sleep every night.
Yes.
You're wondering, someone listening to this, if they're in a sleep debt. What are some telltale signs?
I ask people, when you wake up in the morning, how many days out of 7 do you wake up feeling refreshed and ready to go?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not 7, then there's a problem.
Yeah.
I ask people, do you use an alarm? If you use an alarm to wake up, by definition, you're planning to sleep less than what you need.
Yeah.
You have a sleep debt.
Mm-hmm.
If you get tired in the afternoon after lunch, you have a sleep debt. The idea is if you're fatigued during the day, you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
You have a sleep debt.
Yeah.
That's how you can tell whether you're carrying a sleep debt. Now, there are not very many people who wake up in the morning feeling refreshed and ready to go.
Sure.
And but sometimes people say, well, it only takes me a couple minutes and then I'm ready. As soon as I get my shower, I feel fine.
Yeah.
Or once I've had my coffee, I'm great.
Yeah.
Right? So that's cheating.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're using a drug or you're using coffee and you want to think of it as not a drug, I suppose you can, but
Yeah.
it is.
Sure.
Or if you take a sugary drink in the morning to get going or a
Uh-huh.
sugary cereal, it's a drug. It's processed carbohydrates.
Mm-hmm.
It's not how it was meant to be.
Yeah.
Right. Those people have sleep debt.
Now, what's your take on drugs in particular? Things like, Lunesta, for example. A lot of people will take these kind of hardcore sleep drugs to make sure that they do get sleep every night. What's your perspective on that?
Some sleep is better than no sleep.
Yeah.
And I think if a person's going to use medication, they should have the advice of someone who's well trained in the uses and
Mm-hmm.
also the benefits as well as the problems you can get into.
Mm-hmm.
And sleep medications, you call them hardcore. Yes, they're serious business. And you can get in a lot of trouble. You can become addicted to them, both physically and mentally.
Mm-hmm.
They cause problems with amnesia, right? So most people are familiar with the idea of a person had too much to drink and they black out.
Yeah.
They don't remember what they did the previous day. Well, the same thing is true. Most of the sleep medications, like what you mentioned, the Ambien, the Lunesta, Sonata,
Mm-hmm.
those are all in the same category of drug activity as alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so if you're going to use those kinds of things, you should do so with advice. But again, some sleep is better than no sleep.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons I said hardcore is because someone who shall remain nameless came to me and said that they'd been taking sleep drugs for quite some time, and occasionally they wouldn't fall asleep, right? And some of us know what happens when you take a sleep drug like that and then you stay up afterwards, and a lot of times you just lose your mind, or like you said, you black out a little bit, or you start acting really strange. So that's what he said happened to him sometimes, is that his wife would be like, "You're acting really strange right now," and it would be because he took the drug but didn't go directly to sleep. So one night that happened, and he found himself on eBay, and he ordered like $1,300 worth of junk without even realizing it, and it started showing up at his door a few days later. And it's when when you talk about taking some of these drugs like that, it's fascinating to see what can happen once you start relying on them. So I think that point is really well taken. But what about things like valerian, melatonin, some of the more herbal-based sleep aids?
Well, melatonin, for example, is something our own bodies make. But melatonin by design is weak.
Mm-hmm.
The point I'd like to make is that the friend you talked about, he didn't want to sleep. He took a drug, but he didn't want to sleep. He wanted to do more.
Mm-hmm.
So he fought it. And that's what most people do when they take something like melatonin or they take valerian. They will take it, but they don't really want to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
That's not their priority. They get a book out. They'll turn on the television. They'll do a few chores. They don't want to sleep.
Yeah.
So if melatonin is weak because we need to be able to fight it if there was truly an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
So we have another system. It's called the glutamate system, or the emergency response system that we can go to in the evening. And if we need to fight sleep, we're capable of it. So those things that you're describing, valerian and melatonin, they're relatively weak, but they can work
Mm-hmm.
for someone who is really genuinely interested in going to sleep and follows a regimen that will help be conducive to going to sleep that night.
Yeah. Great. So before we go, because we're coming up on time, what are some of the things that people can do to make sure that they're getting themselves into that headspace in the evening leading up to sleep where they can sleep effectively through the night?
When I talk about it, I describe to people that as you said, in the evening,
Mm-hmm.
that's already too late.
Okay.
If you want to be a good sleeper, then I can tell you that good sleepers look forward to their sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Do what good sleepers do. Look forward to your sleep.
Yeah.
That's what good sleepers are doing. When they're exercising during the day, they're saying to themselves, look at me. I'm earning my sleep tonight. I'm going to sleep well tonight.
Yeah.
That's how you become a good sleeper.
I love how you turned that around, because so many people think of it as stealing exercise away from their sleep, but it's really quite the opposite. Where you get that exercise in that day, you're conked out, right? Like the evening comes and it's far too early, but you're just feeling sleepy, and then you lay down and you just have an awesome night's sleep. And that's really the way it should be, right? You wake up rested, you're powering through that workout, you're feeling great and looking forward to the recovery phase, which is really the most important part, which is going to happen that night.
A lot of people don't like it when I tell them that exercise is getting credit for the heavy lifting that sleep is actually doing.
I love that.
If you get on a treadmill and you look down after a half an hour and it says 300, 400 calories, what is that going to do?
Yeah.
400 calories, that's not even a cookie.
Yeah.
How is that supposed to add up to you losing weight?
Sure.
No. But if you exercise and you put in 400 calories, you're going to more likely sleep deeper that night and get more of the HGH producing deep sleep. And that's what's going to make you feel good the next day. That's what's going to make you lose weight. That's what's going to make you feel more healthy. The exercise is getting credit for what sleep is actually doing for you.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about HGH, the natural secretion of it anyway that happens during sleep? Because I think a lot of people just kind of dismiss sleep as a thing, but there are actually a lot of processes that are happening while you're asleep that are very important to your health.
Well, as I suggested earlier, sleep is not for rest.
Mm-hmm.
That's a mistaken idea. Sleep is work.
Mm-hmm.
And we need it just as important as it is to breathe in, it's important to breathe out. And sleep is for growth and repair. And there's two stages of sleep, basically. There's what I call baby deep sleep, when you're completely out and the HGH is released, and that's the only time it's released. And then there's problem solving sleep, where you have dreams. Mm-hmm. And it's a lighter stage of sleep from which you can easily be awakened. And what people don't understand is that when you go and get a second wind at night, you forfeit most of your deep HGH producing sleep. And in favor, you get the lighter stages of emergency sleep from which you can easily be awakened and maybe have a lot of dreams for problem solving.
Yeah.
So those people who stay up late miss out on the HGH. So those engineers I have who say, well, if I go to bed at 1 o'clock and get up at 9, that's 8 hours, doctor. You said you got to get 8 hours. That should be enough. No, it doesn't work that way. We are diurnal creatures, meaning that we revolve with the sun, and we should pay attention to our own biological rhythms. And when we feel tired in the evening, if we stay within our rhythm, we're more likely to be healthy. Yeah. And the HGH is what is the human growth hormone that signals for growth and repair.
Yeah. Now, I do have a lot of people who write in about shift work or working through the night. And I think I know what your answer is going to be, but what would you say to those folks who are working through the night, given what you've seen, with the Blue Death and all the other phenomena that happen, especially after you get away from that job? Is there anything you can do about shift work or working during the night to mitigate the damage?
Yes, you can be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Don't change up on the weekends, because now that's chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
You can put yourself into a situation where you constantly do the same thing and sleep and get your deep sleep, and then your body will take on a different rhythm. Mm-hmm. But if you keep changing your rhythm, weekends, this artificial, what is a weekend? That's something people made up. It's cultural.
Sure.
Right. But if you stay within a singular rhythm, then you can get deep sleep. It's just that most people don't have that opportunity because they're marginalized by society for doing so.
Yeah. Now, before we go, one more quick thing. What are some of the surprising things that people don't feel like are related to sleep problems, but actually are?
Cancer.
Sure.
Menopause. They don't have menopausal issues the way we do in places like Spain, where they honor sleep. Mm-hmm. Women who sleep less while they're in their childbearing years are the ones who do the most energy borrowing. Uh-huh. They're the ones who have the most perimenopausal issues with mood.
Fascinating. Well, Dr. Washington, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. Where can people find you? What are you working on next?
Well, my book, Lack of Sufficient Sleep Matters, is available at sleepmattersthebook.com. I talked to you about the accelerated experience of energy borrowing, and we have a chapter that people can download for free to read about what it feels like in the second wind, to see if they can relate to that experience and decide whether they are an energy borrower and therefore putting themselves at risk. And on that same website, sleepmattersthebook.com, people, of course, can purchase the book.
Excellent. Well, Dr. Washington, I really appreciate you coming on. Sleep is one of the most important things there is. It's one of my secret weapons that I've really paid attention to, especially in the past few years. You really learn how important it is once you start getting it, as well as on the other end of that. So thank you so much for doing what you do. For those of you listening, if you have any questions about sleep, check out Dr. Roger Washington's book. Thank you so much once again for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks again for listening to Fat Burning Man. Don't forget, before you go, check out fatburningtribe.com. If you have a question for me that you want answered about how to improve your performance, what to eat for dinner, how to drop fat quickly, how to improve your overall health, or anything else, we answer all of your questions there. So quickly, you can get the first month for just $1 for a limited time. Check it out at fatburningtribe.com. All right, I'll see you there. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Fat Burning Man. If you liked it, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, the podcast app, or wherever else you might be listening to or watching this show. Got a second? Please leave me a quick review on iTunes. I always love hearing from you, and if you think someone else might like and benefit from this free show, please take a second to share it with a friend or with a family member. You can get in touch with me on Twitter at FatBurnMan and Facebook by typing in Abel James or Fat Burning Man. Drop me a line anytime. Did you know that I've recorded over 150 episodes of Fat Burning Man, winning 4 awards in independent media and hitting #1 in more than 8 countries? And here's some more good news. You can download and listen to every single episode for free. All you have to do is type in fatburningman.com. I'll give you a second to type it in, fatburningman.com. And you'll get all the show notes in video and audio versions for all the past episodes of Fat Burning Man. Better yet, enter your best email at fatburningman.com, sign up for my newsletter, and I'll even send you a quick start guide to start burning fat right now and a few of our ridiculously tasty recipes as a special thanks for signing up. Once again, just go to fatburningman.com right now, enter your best email to get your free fat burning download straight to your inbox, and make sure that you never miss a show again. This is Abel James signing off. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great week. How is that even possible?
This is hard. Truly. Here we go. I'm in. Fine. The apple.
Okay, now he's eating the apple.
There we go. Oh.
Yes.